Today we welcome local author Linda Baer to our author spotlight. Her new book, Red Blood, Yellow Skin, is a compelling account of courage, compassion, and faith based on her own experience in war-torn Vietnam. Linda joining us today along with her husband, Don. And I had the pleasure, and I'm glad I took the time earlier to talk with you, because your lives are so fascinating that 5.5 minutes are not going to do you justice today. But you know, tell us, you grew up in the late 40s, born in the late 40s in North Vietnam.
Yeah.
And at the age of 4, witnessed your father being murdered by the Viet Minh.
Correct.
Tell us about what then you and your mother did from that period of time in just a war-torn area, because the French and the Vietnamese were fighting against each other. This is well before the Vietnam War.
Yes. After my father was killed, my mother and I uprooted from town to town to try to survive, try to get away from bullet and bomb. And later we moved to South Vietnam, and we have suffered another war there.
And
Yes.
during that time, your mother married a fairly well-to-do guy who was not very nice to you. And at the age of 13, you sort of escaped, went and started working bars and so forth, fell in love with a young airman. He went back to the United States. But then a few years later, you meet Handsome Don here in South Vietnam. And just the stories of the struggles that you went through prior to that. Then you meet this handsome gentleman, and then you guys, you know, I'm jumping a little ahead of schedule here, but you know, in the 70s, you guys spent 3 years in Iran. I mean, who does that? But let's get back to the book, because it's very fascinating. You know, the times that y'all lived in South Vietnam. You were there for how many years as a officer, an officer in the Air Force?
I was there 1 year as an officer, then 4 years as a civilian contractor.
Wow. And what did you do over there?
As an officer, I was a casualty officer in the Air Force, which wasn't the most pleasant job I've ever had. As a contractor with Northrop as well as Lockheed and one other aircraft company, I was in primarily personnel administration of the contracts.
And you and Linda met, fell in love, of course, and then after a period of time, y'all moved back to the States. But Linda, building up to the time that you met Don, I mean, the struggles, and you've told me that you were so appreciative, even to this day, of running water.
Yes.
Yeah. Tell us about that, about how you appreciate that and describe that in your book as well.
Growing up, you know, my parents were so poor that, you know, we ate what we found. That includes little shrimp and fish, water bugs, weed and grasshopper, whatever we can, you know, whatever we caught at that times. And we cook them and eat them with rice. There's no meal without rice. And now that we had so much, that I appreciated everything we have, even wake up and turn the light on. There's more than what I have, and that's why
Because you literally grew up with less than nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And really just at the age of 13 surviving. Tell me about that. When you left the so-called family with your mother and your stepfather, who was not very nice to you at all in a lot of ways, but you left and went to Saigon?
Yes. At the age of 13, or even before, I worked at very hard labor job, try to help my family. Although my stepfather is not very nice to me, I still love him because he is my stepfather. And I have, you know, no hard feeling with him, because he tried to teach me from wrong to right. And that's our culture and our custom. And it's our tradition of Vietnam. And that's how I got taught by my parents. And it's maybe hard to hear that from an American point of view, but in our culture and custom, it's perfectly fine.
And this book takes us through. It's an actual true story. It
Yes.
actually takes us through from the time that you were born, your father being murdered, when you were with your mother, when she met your stepfather, a number of other steps before you met Don. And something that we were talking about in the grooming a little while ago, you guys have actually been back to North and South Vietnam on several occasions.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And how was that? How was it when you go back after being gone for 35, 40, maybe even 50 plus years, that you go back and you see, because there's a lot of things that just don't change in South Vietnam and North Vietnam. How's it like going back?
It was an experience. The first time I know that we went back, it was rather frightening because this was in the 80s when I finally got. She went in '89. I didn't go back until '95. But the country was just recovering from the war, and conditions over there were unbelievable. I mean, the people were hungry, and it was just a terrible time. They've gotten much, much better since. I mean, the last time we were there in 2002, I believe it was, things have gotten a lot better. You
just come in and my understanding, they just welcome you with open arms.
Oh, yes.
They love Americans, and you're now an American citizen. But when you go over there, they love Americans, they love the American dollar, and they want to make sure that you're happy.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Now, you guys have lived here. We have just a few seconds left. You guys have lived here for 30 years. You've got a great cosmetology shop,
Yeah.
a hair salon.
Yeah.
And I was commenting how Don is so handsome with his hair and everything. He said he hadn't paid for a haircut in how long? 40 years. 40 years. But your shop, it's on Highway 61?
Yeah, it's called Linda B, now called Elegance by Linda B. And I've been there about 30 years.
Wow,
Yeah.
fantastic. Now, do y'all have any plans going back to South and North Vietnam anytime soon?
Not in immediate, time, but in the future we might. Yeah.
And this is just recently out. Where can people get a hold of this book?
It's on Barnes and Noble, Amazon, Google Book, and most bookstore. And if they don't have it, they can just order it, and they will, get it.
And you've got a second book coming out probably next year as well.
Yeah, hopefully, yes.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Linda,
Well,
Don,
thank you.
pleasure. We're going to have
Thank
lunch
you.
together. I know
Thank
that.
you.
I love the
we
stories. We've got
Okay.
more coming up in just a moment, so please stay with us. A little road tripping, though, now with Aaron Kinzel.
It's time to explore the Low Country.